COVID pay rates are changing quickly, almost weekly. I wanted to take a minute, make a little quick video on how to possibly renegotiate your contract if your rates are changing after you've signed the contract or even after you have started. This has actually personally happened to me. I'm in week 2 of a 13-week contract and my rates have changed several times since I started negotiating this contract, but even once last week after I even started this contract. So I wanted to give some tips on how to combat this, how to renegotiate a contract. That way you are making the most money possible. So stick with me. I'm going to try and keep this simple and quick for you. I know it'll help a lot of nurses out because, like I said, rates are changing all over the country, and I think a lot of them are even changing weekly. So to start with, pre-COVID, I used to tell all the nurses, all the members of this group, you signed the contract, take responsibility for it. It was your responsibility to do the research, get the best rates possible. And I still kind of stick to that advice, except for now things have changed. COVID is changing the market up. Numbers are changing. It's really changing the work environment, and nurses deserve to get paid the most money possible. So I kind of take a step back from that strategy because pre-COVID rates did not change very much. I mean, it was very few and far between when a hospital really changed their bill rate. However, due to COVID, these bill rates are changing each week. If you're not sure what bill rate is the amount of money the hospital pays the agency. That is called the bill rate. So like I said, COVID has changed things. Rates are changing weekly in a lot of places. I also mentioned that I am going through this myself, and I'm going to kind of explain how I combat this and what I'm telling others of how to deal with it. So lots of questions coming from members of the group. People are sending me messages. How do I renegotiate my contract? This nurse is working beside me and is making $800 more a week than me. Getting a lot of this. This is happening, and recruiters are just taking advantage of some of these nurses. So here's some things that I've been telling people, and things that I have been doing as well. First thing is to check in with your recruiter at least weekly. Just talk to them. Ask them about the rates. Are the rates changing? Maybe your recruiter is just going to lie to you every single time. Maybe not, but it's at least worth checking in with your recruiter. Personally, I would probably recommend calling them, not texting them, to have this conversation. Sometimes you can kind of pick up on more clues. You might can kind of pressure the recruiter a little bit more, and you never know. They might let something slip and say that, oh, rates are going up. So I would probably recommend calling them at least weekly, more if you would like to. So that is the first thing. Second thing is to continue doing your research and talking to other travelers that are working beside you, even after you have signed your contract or started your contract. I guess you can't talk to travelers until after you start that contract. But talk to those travelers. I would say that's one of the best things to do. Don't be slimy about it, but talk to them. Start a conversation. Ask them. What agency are they working with? How do they feel about them? What do you like about your recruiter? You can kind of ease into it. Some recruiters are a little more hesitant to talk about their pay, and that's completely fine. That's up to them. I'm very open. If you ask me how much I was making, I'll tell you. But like I said, I would talk to other travelers, see how much they're making, see if they'll even let you see their contract, because sometimes travelers might not even understand how much they are getting paid. I've definitely seen that here recently. A lot of new travelers who just don't really understand, and they're just out there thinking they're doing great. So like I said, talk to travelers, keep doing your research on Facebook groups, looking at other contracts, looking at the same contract that you're in. If you happen to find a traveler who is making a considerable amount more, we're talking like $100 more or more than that, I would definitely say it's worth talking to your recruiter. And honestly, if it was probably $50 more, I'd probably still talk to my recruiter about it, because $50 times 13 weeks is $650. I'll definitely take that. So once you find proof that there is a higher, someone out there making more, an agency that is offering more, you bring it back up to your recruiter. So you can call your recruiter back up and say, hey, I found this traveler who's working beside me and they're making this much. So your recruiter will either just offer it to you or not. So if they offer it to you, great. If not, you have to take it to the next step. The next step for me is to kind of go from being nicely asking to kind of playing a tad bit more hardball, being a little more stern. And usually what I like to do is just say, well, this is very frustrating. It's frustrating working beside somebody who's making hundreds more than me, and I'm just not happy right now. So you can really harp on that, these emotional feelings. Tell them how unhappy you are, and this just doesn't look good on the agency, and your recruiter, it doesn't look good on them. So once you kind of say all that, let there be a long silence. Let the recruiter respond. Let them feel the pressure of that. See if that does the trick. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If that doesn't work, next step is to tell them, I'm still very frustrated. I'm seeing more travelers working beside me that are making a lot more than me. I just don't think I can work with this agency in the future. This is just not going to work out. Again, you're not threatening to cancel your contract, but you're basically telling them, like, unless you make this right, I'm probably never going to work with you again. I'm going to walk away. So sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. If that doesn't work, then the next step is to almost tell them that I'm putting in my 2 weeks, or I'm canceling this contract. Be careful canceling contracts. It can come with consequences, not always. Putting in 2 weeks is probably the smart thing to do, but that's up to you to make that decision. If you're getting paid $1,000 or $1,500 less a week, maybe it's worth putting in 2 weeks, maybe it's not. So with all that being said, that last bit's kind of when you're almost threatening them, like, give me this or I'm gone. Just know you can't bluff that. If you're gonna say that and they don't give you that raise, then you've got to leave, because if you don't, after you threaten to leave, you basically have lost all your leverage. Anytime you use kind of pressure, or I don't want to say threat, but like anytime you try to threaten the recruiter with leaving, they're going to call your bluff, because you bluffed the last time they called it. And so if you're going to say that, you've got to leave. Let's see here. I got a couple notes down here. I just want to make sure I have hit everything. And you don't have to go through, those steps of, telling your recruiter about the raise, and then you're frustrated, and then that you're looking into other options, and then, telling them you're putting in your 2 weeks. You don't have to do that all at one time. You can, if it works out that way. You could let some time pass, a day or so. You don't want to sit there and drag this out over 2 weeks while you're making $1,000 less. But those are just some of the tricks that I use. One other thing I wanted to add is that I've seen a lot of posts recently. Nurses are telling me that their agency or their recruiter is telling them that the hospital is not allowing them to increase their specific rate. And that's just not true, guys. The hospital pays the agency a bill rate. So they set that rate. I mean, the agency can't pay more than that bill rate, because then the agency would be losing money. They can't even pay that full bill rate because they'd be losing money, because an agency has cost. But the thing is, and to keep it simple, very simple and basic, just assume that the hospital is paying every agency the same bill rate. So if agency A over here is paying their travelers $500 or $1,000 more, then there's about a 97% chance that agency B could be paying the same amount, or at least close to it. So if if agency B is saying, oh, the hospital won't allow me to pay you more, even though agency A is paying more, then that's just not true. So don't fall for that. Don't accept that as an answer. Continue pushing. Take those steps that I mentioned earlier. Push your recruiter, and I think some people will likely get some higher pay packages after watching this video. So I certainly hope it helps. If you have some questions, post them down below. If your recruiter tells you something differently other than the hospital won't allow it, comment that down below as well. I'd love to hear it. Just know that most of it is, I would say 98% of it is not true. All agencies should be paying close to the same, or should have the capabilities of paying close to the same. I will say in one instance, if your contract is almost over, if it's like an 8-week contract and you're on week 6, or if you're on week 10 of a 13-week contract, they're going to be less likely to give you that increase just because you're almost done, and just business-wise, it's better just to let them finish out the contract, and then they can renegotiate with the extension or just move on. So if you're in the last couple weeks of your contract, or if it's a 4-week contract, you might not be able to renegotiate that. So other than that, as long as you're probably in the first half of the contract, you should be able to renegotiate your contract. I hope this helps. Let me know what questions you have, and good luck with everything.